It's the day after Groundhog Day, and you know what that means. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the American economy unexpectedly shrank in the last quarter, down 0.1%. The unemployment rate ticks up to 7.9%, and the president shuts down his jobs council. The state's politicians continue to debate mining legislation in Madison. Democratic senators push a ban on assault weapons, and we got this interesting explanation for all the shootings in Chicago.
There are contributing factors that are not under anybody's control and may seem odd, but it is factually true. One of them is actually the weather. There is a dramatic increase in gun violence when it is warmer, and we are having this climate change effect that is driving that.
Yeah, climate change. But then how do you explain the 40 murders in Chicago in the month of January? A bombshell story details screw-ups with an ATF gun sting that went horribly wrong here in Milwaukee. The president claims he goes skeet shooting all the time, but nobody seems to have actually seen him do it, except maybe Manti Te'o's girlfriend. Donald Driver retires. Harley Davidson picks Kid Rock to headline its big gig this year. Former New York Mayor Ed Koch dies at the age of 88. And a Waukesha judge and his family are the subject of one of the most powerful stories of the week, the story of Dominic P.O. Gundrum, born with his brain outside of his skull, but who is now on track to be a healthy and happy baby. It's an amazing story of faith, hope, and medical miracles. Check it out. But we start with a fierce debate over this 30-second radio ad by Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, Jr.
I'm Sheriff David Clark, and I want to talk to you about something personal, your safety. It's no longer a spectator sport. I need you in the game. But are you ready? With officers laid off and furloughed, simply calling 911 and waiting is no longer your best option. You can beg for mercy from a violent criminal, hide under the bed, or you can fight back. But are you prepared? Consider taking a certified safety course in handling a firearm so you can defend yourself until we get there. You have a duty to protect yourself and your family. We're partners now. Can I count on you?
This safety message brought to you by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office.
Well, as you know by now, reaction was quick, emotional, and intense. Mayor Tom Barrett accused Clark of auditioning for a Dirty Harry movie. Anti-gun activists accused him of encouraging vigilantism, and the debate took off on national television where Clark and Barrett debated gun violence.
In your time as the sheriff, how many people in Milwaukee, to your certain knowledge, have defended themselves and their family at home by firing a firearm?
I don't have those statistics.
Well, give me a ballpark.
I don't think we need to go there, to be honest with you. The fact is,
well, you haven't got a clue,
personal safety is an individual.
You haven't got a clue.
Well, wait a minute.
Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn.
Wait a minute. You want to arm everybody in Milwaukee.
Ed Flynn had this to say.
Racy Hollywood stuff.
It's, not responsible to attempt to undermine confidence in local law enforcement and terrorize people about the safety of their streets. It's just no way to go about responsibly advocating for gun rights.
Now, joining me on our panel this morning, political strategist Linda Bruin, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Michael Holt, former state representative Michelle Litchens, and media trackers Brian Sikma. So who's right on this? Who do you side with? Barrett and his and the critics?
Well,
Sheriff
I
Clark?
wouldn't go as far as the chief went and called it, of terrorism in the streets. I mean, we do have a problem of violence, and people do have a right for self-defense. Now, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the sheriff telling everybody, go arm yourself. But I will tell you this, we are the first line of defense. And sometimes you can wait for the police and you'll be waiting a long time. There's something, though, that kind of like went over everybody's head.
You are like tap dancing around this. Now,
I have weapons.
He is saying
I don't know if I want Lynn to have one.
He is saying that he wants, that you say either you have a right to self-defense. He says you have a duty of self-defense, that in fact you have to understand that if you're under violent attack, you can't wait for 911. You have to be able to defend yourself.
I absolutely agree with that.
Okay.
Absolutely. But there was something else inherent in there that people really aren't even talking about. Yeah. These furloughs. Yeah. These furloughs are tied to these escalating costs for pensions.
Right.
So the city is now being forced to furlough officers to actually
make
them
but I want to stick with Clark. Is Clark right or wrong on this? Michelle Litchens,
he's completely correct. Okay. And even more than that, whenever you hear the Democrats talking about how we don't have to take that personal responsibility for our safety, when we don't live in a police state, We are all responsible for protecting ourselves first before we can, have, when you dial 911 and it takes so long for the police to get there. But I think the Democrats want us to believe that we are living in this police state where the police are on every corner, they're in our schools, they're there to take care of us, but they can't get there right away.
Linda Bruin,
the city of Milwaukee, run by Police Chief Ed Flynn, handles almost 1,800 violent crimes a year. Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department had 1 murder they handled in 4 years and 17 assaults, all within the jail. So I'm going to listen to the guy, the law enforcement guy in charge, whose department deals with those violent assaults.
So somebody is breaking in your house. You think
I've had that happen.
The proper response is to what? Is to dial 911 and then to duck and cover, as opposed to protect yourself?
I have no problem with people protecting themselves, but that's a misstatement of what Sheriff Clark was doing.
What did he say?
He was promoting, is a very fear-based attempt at a commercial. It was basically the type of commercial where you want to create fear, where you want to create publicity. It was not well done as far as a responsible public health type ad to get people to help protect themselves. There were no steps. All he talked about was guns. He didn't talk about anything about steps you do to protect your home, steps you do to reduce the possibility of break-ins. There's a whole level of things you do in addition to looking at whether you arm yourself.
Now, among the critics, there was an anti-gun activist in the Journal-Sentinel editorial board that said that Sheriff Clark, in effect, was promoting vigilantism. Was he promoting vigilantism?
Not at all. He was promoting personal responsibility. Citizens need to take responsible steps to protect themselves, protect their families. I think what's causing liberal heads to explode about this is the fact that a sheriff would dare to have faith in the people that he serves, the people of the county of Milwaukee. The sheriff didn't go out and call for people to be irresponsible. He said, look, get safety training. I'm a firearms owner. I have safety training to be able to own a firearm. He called for people to take that step of responsibility. You've got Mayor Barrett going out there complaining about all this. I'm not sure if he's the best vehicle to be complaining about this. He's part of a group that has actually, unfortunately, politicized the deaths of school shootings. So it's not really a situation that should be unfolding right now.
Well, I thought one of the things that we haven't been talking about, though, is this question of police response times. And the reality is the police are not going to be everywhere, and police are not going to be able to respond. There is a lag time. And what the sheriff is saying is, look, if you need to protect yourself, and again, the key point was go get safety training so that you're able to protect yourself and your family. I think a lot of this reaction was this knee-jerk anti-gun reaction from people who suffer from Clark derangement syndrome. And one of the things that we found out was how absolutely clueless some of the critics were, because he's not talking about vigilantism, he's talking about self-defense. And so when the Journal-Sentinel and the anti-gun activists accused him of vigilantism, what it told me was, and I thought this was worth knowing, that some of these folks have no concept about the concept of self-protection.
Several years ago, I was robbed at gunpoint with a gun at my daughter's head, and I didn't have time to call 911, and I fought the guy for the gun. So it's not like I don't think you should have self-responsibility, and there's times when calling 911 is not going to work. That part of his message is okay. The rest was too much buffoonery.
Okay, did the groundhog leave your glass half full or half empty? Let's go around the table. Linda Bruin.
Well, both. We had half full because we had 65-degree weather on Wednesday, but by Friday it was 25 below, wind chill. It was awful.
How weird is that? Michelle?
My glass is half full because the Obama administration finally acknowledges that we should not be requiring faith-based groups to provide birth control to their employees. But then it's half empty because we also know the rest of the rules and regulations coming with Obamacare, and they're not going to be nice.
Okay, Michael Holt.
I was half full throughout the entire summer. Gasoline was like $3.18, $3.19. It was good times for all those who have to drive. Now it's up to $3.50, and it's going up. So hold on to your credit card.
Hope and change, Michael. Brian.
I think Mark and Mary Gundrum have a situation that's glass half full, half empty. Their story this week was inspiration to a lot of us that are out there. We saw the fact that as a family, you'd never wished for them to go through something like that, but they're there supporting that child and living out what it means to be pro-life. I think that's commendable.
Okay, my glass is half empty because the ATF is caught with another bungled gun running sting right here in Milwaukee, which was a disaster. It's half full because maybe it'll make people ask the question, do we really want to give these people more power over guns? Still ahead on Sunday Insight, Donald Driver ends his career, and as we go to break, schools around the country are holding so-called Code Red drills to prepare kids for shootings, but are they really any different from this blast from the past?
You and I don't have shells to crawl into like Bert the Turtle, so we have to cover up in our own way. First, you duck, and then you cover. And very tightly, you cover the back of your neck with your face. Duck and cover underneath a table or desk or anything else close by.
Donald Driver calls it a career. One of the most popular Packer players ever announced last week that he was retiring after 14 years in the green and gold. Driver retires as the all-time receiving leader with franchise records for, among other things, most receptions, most receiving yards, most seasons with 100 yards or more, 1,000 yards or more receiving. So here's the question. We'll start with you, Michelle Litchens. What will he be most remembered for? What will be the most enduring legacy of Donald Driver?
Beyond his smile, because everyone just caught that smile when you saw him. You just felt good and you felt happy. But Donald Driver he was the embodiment of what you wanted a sports hero to be. He was someone that your kids could look up to, and you wanted to look up to yourself. And I think we were just so happy that he was deciding to retire as a Packer.
Okay, Michael Holt.
He was a class act. Now, it's going to take me a while, to be quite honest, to get over what the Packers did to him this past season. You know, they brought him back as part of a publicity stunt because he won Dancing with the Stars. They didn't use him the entire season. I mean, you could watch him on the sideline, you know, where they're going to third and fourth string receivers. And, you know, for him to continue smiling means that he is really a class act, because I would have been
okay, Brian Sickman.
No, he was a great Packer, and he embodied what it meant to be a Green Bay Packers fan. I mean, other players have been outstanding in serving the Packers, but they left not on good terms. Donald Driver's going to go down as the guy that Packers fans can always be proud of no matter what he did.
Absolutely, except instead of saying he is a classy guy. He is a class act. And the bottom line is he's going to make a lot of money, a lot more money than if he went to another team.
He reminded us that character still matters in sports. When I did this on my radio show the other day, I would say that 80% of the calls were about the man he is off the field, his charity, one of the really, really good guys. And isn't it great that we are not having to talk about Ray Lewis or Randy Moss, which can talk about Donald Driver. Hey, the free tickets to the Donald Driver retirement ceremony are the only thing in Wisconsin snatched up faster than the unsolicited advice that we hand out freely each week. Linda Bruin, your unsolicited advice?
I want the Packers to retire number 80 because of Donald Driver.
Okay, fair enough. Michelle?
If you are a cat owner, we learned this week that cats kill about 1.4 to 3.7 billion birds a year, so keep your cats indoors.
Okay.
To the Ravens cheerleader who wasn't chosen to go to the Super Bowl because she was 1.5 pounds overweight. Try the Green Bay Packers. They don't really care about your weight.
Whoa. Okay, Brian Sickman.
Well, I think that the people of Madison should become a little bit more acquainted with manual labor and shovels. You go out there this time of year, there's snow piled on the streets, snow on the sidewalks. They need to get a clue as to what's going on.
Okay, my unsolicited advice, Republicans in the legislature, this idea of a tonnage tax on mining is a terrible idea. This should be about growing the economy, creating jobs, making Wisconsin more attractive, not a cash grab for politicians. Well, we just talked about Donald leaving the Packers. Well, there was also a big change in Washington this week. Hillary Clinton said goodbye as Secretary of State. She leaves the State Department after 4 years. Who knows what the future might hold for her? And John Kerry says goodbye to the U.S. Senate. The Senate overwhelmingly supported his nomination as the new Secretary of State. Last week was School Choice Week, and there were celebrations at local schools, but choice here still faces challenges. The legislature will debate funding, expansion, and issues of accountability. Now, despite the continuing dysfunction of public schools in cities like Milwaukee, choice remains very controversial. So the question is, what is choice? What is ahead for school choice? What does the school choice movement have to do to turn the corner?
Well, I think they've made tremendous steps over the past few years here in Wisconsin because of the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program that was then expanded to the city of Racine. I think it'd be great if we could expand that program statewide and give every child in the state of Wisconsin a chance to possibly attend a choice school, because when you introduce accountability into the system.
Why is there so much resistance to that, though? And and it's among some Republicans in the state Senate.
Yeah.
Why is there resistance to that?
I think they're afraid of new ideas. They're afraid of the fact that it may mean that our public schools will suddenly be challenged and not able to meet the demands placed upon them. But we're introducing competition into the system, and even some of the detractors of school choice admit that public schools in some parts of our state are failing.
Okay, this is something that's been very close to your heart.
Yeah, and I'm a big-time school choice supporters. You know, I was just reading this article by John Whitty, who originally did studies on school choice and criticized the program. He did an article last week praising school choice, said how it benefits the entire community. Reading scores, graduation rates are up tremendously, etc., which is prompting all of these new texts. Now, what you're going to see is, for example, Democrats for Education Reform has hired Jason Fields, the head of new Wisconsin office. And we also have Bale, Black Alliance for Educational Officers. And they're going to be more proactive in actually promoting school choice and in weeding out the bad schools. That's the future of school choice.
Okay, Michelle Litchens.
Well, I'll tell you why. many communities are opposed to this idea. I had one superintendent, actually of a great school system, tell me if we allow school choice to happen statewide, she is only going to be left with the bottom students. And she said that's not fair. So
and
really,
that's entirely untrue.
No, of course it's not true, but that was their excuse. So if we really, as parents in a community, want to say we want our children to have the best education possible, we shouldn't care if it happens in a private, public, charter, virtual school. It shouldn't really matter at all. But I think a lot of people in the public school system, that's their fear.
Okay.
Before you expand this much further, you really have to put some of the accountability, at least the data gathering measures in. And I think that, no one really knows what Governor Walker is going to propose in his budget in last week of February or third week or whatever, but I hope he puts in some data gathering requirements because right now you know how the state does the report card on Wisconsin schools. That's all the public school system, and you have to be able to compare, are these kids really getting better educated? And if they are, I hope they are, because of, especially in the city of Milwaukee, but you have to make sure that they're at least doing the minimal level job or better.
Well, I don't disagree with you on that, but see, here's the thing about accountability. That if a private school choice school is a bad school, it might go out of business, or parents will choose not to go there. What happens with public schools that are dysfunctional, or the teachers that have tenure? I guess the opponents of school choice, though, you still have to explain why they believe that only government-run, union-dominated schools can provide effective education, because that's so obviously
that's not what it's about. What it's about is power. It's about dollars and cents. And they hate the idea that school choice effectively gives
Michael,
power to parents.
it is not just that. I believe in the quality of a public school system. I believe that if we did not, in this country, have a public school system,
the opponents of school choice are not, listen, the opponents of school choice are not worried that school choice won't have quality. They're scared to death that they will do a better job in the public schools for less money. Let's look into the crystal ball. What are you looking forward to this week, Linda Bruin?
Well, with the Packers not being the Super Bowl, what I look forward on a Super Bowl without the Packers are the ads. I love the commercials, and it'll be a blast.
Michelle Litchens.
It might not be this week, but I've heard snippets of a study about the university system and how many hours professors actually work, so I'm kind of looking forward to that being released.
Okay. I'm looking for the Super Bowl. And even though the Packers are on it, we have a Milwaukee connection. Quarterback 49ers from Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I'm looking forward to Super Bowl this afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And there's other more formal things you get announced, but it's going to be fun to kick back for a few hours and forget about politics.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to a lot of stuff, but you know what? I'm looking forward to later this afternoon. I'm just looking for the Super Bowl party. So coming up next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here is your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Linda Bruin, you're first.
My winners are the 74% of NRA members and 87% of all Americans who support criminal background checks for all gun sales. My loser is the NRA's lobbyist, Wayne LaPierre, whose extremist opposition is contrary to the position of his own members and common sense.
Michelle Litchens.
My winner is the Gundrum family. Mark and Mary Gundrum, their son, they were told their son would have fatal or life-debilitating birth defects, and yet they chose life. You brought joy and humility to thousands of people whose lives you've touched. Thank you for showing all of us that life is precious. My loser is Taco Bell. You had a funny commercial that made fun of people who brought veggie trays to parties. The food nannies got their undies in a bundle, and so you pulled your ad. Now, people who bring veggie trays to parties don't buy tacos, so you probably wouldn't have lost any customers, but you would have sold more tacos today. You caved to the nannies, and therefore you're a loser.
Michael Holt.
I was at the Whistle Tour for School Choice Week, and it was really amazing. Can you imagine public, private, charter schools all together and everybody talking about diversity without competition? As Willie Hines says, it's about the children, y'all, and the system of schools. The losers, all of these goofballs, including some leaders of our Negroocracy, who continue to fight school choice.
Brian Sickma.
Well, my winner is Democrat Sheriff David Clark, who disappointed detractors this week by rationally and calmly explaining his public service announcement encouraging responsible gun ownership. My loser this week is the Weak Knee Caucus of Republicans in Madison, who proposed the creation of a brand new tax on mine companies. Free market ideas won in Wisconsin last November, so let's start acting like leaders or step aside and let others take your position in the legislature.
Well, my loser, the ATF, which may have to change its name to the WTF. I mean, first there was Fast and Furious, now a botched gun sting right here in Milwaukee. Do we really want to give those guys more power? My winner, Well, there's so many this week. Donald Driver, David Clark, but my winner is a seven-month-old baby named Dominic Pio Gundrum. He is defying incredible odds as his story is one of faith, hope, and community. This is what choosing life looks like. Hey, a quick closing note here. RightWisconsin.com went live this week. It's the brand new digital community for conservatives, complete with exclusive commentary, blogs, and a special news feed. We're signing off right now, but the conversation continues over at RightWisconsin.com 24/7. Enjoy the Super Bowl later today.